Hey, it's Greg Rose here with Dave Phillips. We're doing the junior level 2 Q&A here. Thanks for joining us. We've got 1 hour. We're going to try and go through as many questions as we can. If you have questions, you can type it into the Q&A. We have literally almost 15, 20 questions that we got beforehand, so we're going to try and go as fast as we can. If we don't get to your questions, we will shoot you an email. Okay. Right. We don't. Okay. So first one, how would you behave with a late bloomer? Let's say a 10, 11-year-old that struggles to keep pace with the rest of the group. So that's a great question. So we get this all the time, is that, you know, when you have a junior program, not everybody shows up. Age 5 is really age 5. You've got some that are really biologically age 7, some that are maybe biologically age 3. And so you've got these early bloomers, late bloomers. So to me, it starts with education. When you sit down with a child, when you sit down with a parent, you have to explain to them the growth charts. I actually show them the growth charts, and I let them know that, hey, right now, potentially, if you're a late bloomer, that's an advantage, right? Based on all the data we have, most of the early bloomers, it's harder to manage, right? It's psychologically that you have to manage the late bloomers, because they're like, why are all my friends doing this easier than me? And you just have to, educate them. I think you have to give them equipment that still challenges them, but allows them to have some success. Like, let's say you're using baseball bats. You would give the late bloomer maybe a bigger bat. Maybe the early bloomers are using a small bat. So give them the opportunity to do that. But you also want to challenge them. I like putting them in with maybe someone who's a little bit better with them too, just to kind of motivate them.
I think the parents can help there too, Greg. I think, you know, if the parents know that, hey, you should be doing this at home, they can bring them up to speed a little bit quicker.
I think they tend to learn that hard work pays off, right? They have to work harder. I think if the parents are, instead of saying, hey, you're the best, they're saying, see what happens when you work hard. We're starting to make progress, and showing them progress. If you can track anything, like, hey, you used to be able to hit it this far, now you can hit it 12 yards farther. Even if it's small gains, any gains helps. It keeps them motivated, right? That's basically the best you can do. I don't like putting them, like, don't put them with, like, you know, 5-year-olds. Keep them with their age group. That's really important. Okay, now the next one is, let me make sure I turn these sounds off. Okay, is the junior level 3 course coming to Europe? Well, here's how we do this, Martin. Great question. What we do is we track our online level 2 sales all over the world, and when we get to a certain number of people who've taken the online class, then we schedule a live level 3. I would probably think that we probably aren't going to do a junior level 3 this year.
Yes. But
I'd be pretty surprised if we didn't have one either probably at the Belfry or Amsterdam sometime in 2019.
We've actually discussed having almost like a level 3 week in Europe.
Right.
We go and bring out teammates, because the difficulty is obviously we have a lot of instructors, and we have to have the numbers so that we can justify doing it. But we're definitely looking at that.
Level 3 is 3 days, so expect to do that. We have the dates posted now on my TPI for the level 3 here at TPI. It's always cool to visit here at TPI too. So hopefully, if we don't see you this year, I'm pretty sure you'll see us in Europe next year. Okay, can you talk about how you can carry the group program across individual junior lessons? Okay, so obviously our junior program, everything's done in group. Now, when you get to that growth spurt, we always say, once you get to the growth spurt, if you haven't by then, you know, you should be doing individual, not only training, but golf coaching. I feel like when you get to the skill phase, you know, 8.5 for boys, maybe even 7 for girls, it's good to have one-on-one coaching with the kids for technique. So how do we take that individual lesson and then apply it to the group one? So, you know, what we do a lot of times is in our group sessions is we create something we call sniper stations.
Yes.
Right. So the sniper stations is literally the group is working on, let's say we're working on 3 drills.
Yep.
Okay. And let's say we're working on a pelvic punch drill so for lower body engagement. Let's say we're working on a motorcycle drill for hands. You've seen some of these. Everybody does those 2 drills. On the 3rd drill, it's sniper drill. Everybody does their unique drill that they need to work on. And we cover that in the individual one-on-one lessons, right? So I always feel like I always say it's time for an individual tea time, right? So when you get to, let's say, an 8-year-old girl, we always say to the parents, I think it's important now that we have maybe a 15-minute, doesn't have to be an hour lesson. It could be a 15-minute, 20-minute lesson. We call it a 15-minute tea time, that you come in by yourself. We want to go through and kind of highlight some of the things you need to be working on, and we can highlight the things in the sniper station that we do as a group. That's kind of what I would recommend. Okay, can you talk about how you can carry the group program across the? Oh, that's what I said. Sorry. How Oh, I've gotten so much out of the junior level 2 material. Could you give us an overview of the level 3 from Joe? Okay, well, hey, I'm glad to hear you got a lot out of the level 2. There's a lot of info in there. Level 3, let me give you quick highlights on level 3. So level 3 is number 1, practical application, right? So we're going to go through and we're going to show you how we set up the cyclone. We're going to show you how we set up the smash. We're going to go through and set up the wave, and we're going to set up the EDP. You're actually going to go through and learn how we do it. Now, I don't want to say it's common sense once you've seen it, but I think everybody gets the theme once you do it.
Yeah.
What's difficult is there's 3 years of cyclones, right? So there's fun 1, fun 2, fun 3. And if you actually go through and look at the curriculum, because there's 3 years, there are tons of cyclones that you have to set up. And now we don't like changing them a ton, but every month or 2 months we change the cyclones. So literally we're going to go through like what's the difference between cyclone 1, cyclone 2, cyclone 3, cyclone 4 as you go through each of the fun phases.
Yep. Same
thing for smash, same thing for wave. So we'll go through all the variations, we'll go through the themes in detail. So we'll go through all the teaching things, how do you teach finesse wedges for kids? How do you teach full swing? How do you teach power? How do you teach speed? All those types of things. And then we get into the business pretty heavy. So obviously we run a lot of junior programs around the world. So we'll talk about everything from forms and things that they should fill out to what are some of the common structures of what we charge. What are some of the pitfalls, safety requirements, all those types of things in level 3. So really it's practical application starting your junior program. We feel like when you're done with level 3, you should be very confident that you can implement this at your facility. Okay. So that's level 3. How do girls' menstrual period affect performance and overall focus during practice or tournament play? From Ricardo, great question. So, we talk a lot about this in our level 2 fitness class.
Janet,
right? So Janet Alexander talks a lot about how we completely train women differently than men.
That's right.
And you got to remember that because of the estrogen and progesterone that goes through a monthly cycle, women are going to go through this hurricane of emotions and physical changes throughout the month. A couple key things that I think, Ricardo, that you should be aware of. First of all, not all women react the same to different hormones, right? So some women have premenstrual syndrome, some people don't, right? I think most of the women that have the problem will tell you. They're like, hey, look, I have some issues here. If they don't, sometimes the young kids are a little embarrassed to talk about this. You could even talk to the parents to talk about the kids about this as well if you don't feel comfortable. But I'm worried about a couple of things. Number 1, training. Let's talk about training. So with women, it's really important that you understand that when they go through their menstrual period, certain hormones are released, right, to allow them to give birth.
Yeah.
Now, if you think about it, if you're going to pass a baby through your pelvic canal, it would help if your ligaments were a little lax. So it releases a hormone called relaxin at certain points. And when estrogen peaks, relaxin peaks, they're vulnerable to injury.
Yeah.
Right? So because they're so mobile that in the joints that really shouldn't be mobile,
that's right.
There's some things that can be a problem. Now, the key times where you have to be worried about this is at ovulation. For most girls, if you start day 1 is when they start their period. At day 14 is the most common ovulation time, right? So at that point in time, we definitely have a high risk period. I also think that when they start to bleed, there's also an issue there with relaxin. So literally, most periods are 1 to 28 days, somewhere in the middle, around day 14, ovulation, as estrogen starts to peak. And then a little bit later in the cycle, it starts to peak again too. So what we do is we change some of the exercises, right? So some of the exercises, like let's say Janet, I'll give you an example, one that Janet does, I think it's an easy one. Like if you're having them do warm-up exercises like squatting, right? A lot of times with squatting, you see my feet, where feet are like this, and let's say we're doing a squat. This leaves the SI joints kind of vulnerable, right? The SI joints here in the back can strain. So what you can do is you can change to what we call a Jefferson squat, turn the feet out. That kind of locks the SI joints, keeps the joints nice and stable. Hold the bar in front like a goblet with a kettlebell, and squatting like this tends to be a little safer, right? So if you're not trained, if you're not a trainer, you're more of a golf coach. I think that talk to your fitness professional about ways we can modify some of the exercises or just minimize the heavy strength training if you're in that.
And we can always get Janet's email if you have specific questions. She's really an expert on this. She's phenomenal.
Now, you also said something about focus during practice. I think for the women who have PMS, right, this can be a big problem, right? So I always feel like sometimes, they're like, hey, I feel like I'm out of sorts right now. Well, here's the thing in professional golf, you can't time the tournaments, like what if the US Opens this time of year? So I always tell my girls, I'm like, listen, we got to learn how to practice this. It sucks, right? But we talk to them like, hey, here's some of the mental process routines that you want to practice. Like we teach about having a process, going through a pre-shot routine, a post-shot routine, and practicing it so that when you're all out of sorts, whether it's heavy pressure and you're nervous, or it's that time of the month where it's driving you crazy, we say, hey, listen, just run your process. We've done it 1,000 times practicing it, and you tend to perform better. Okay, what would you rate is the best way to teach the correct kinematic sequence for juniors? And I'm referring to age kids 6 to 10 from work. Okay, so kinematic sequence. So I'll say one thing, and David, you can say. So to me, if you remember our junior program, the reason our whole junior program is focused on athletes first, golfers second, is because the kinematic sequence literally measures athleticism.
Yes.
Right? It doesn't, you can have a perfect kinematic sequence and hit the ball sideways. I'll make this really clear. The kinematic sequence shows me how you can create power, transfer power through your body efficiently. Now, whether you time the club face in the right position or not, that's up to coaching and hand-eye coordination. So to get a perfect kinematic sequence, which is, I don't think you're asking what's the best way to hit a perfect golf ball, to get a perfect kinematic sequence, is determine an athlete first.
Right.
So any of the athletic skills, like if you put them under, I see the next question here is what's the best way to teach the proper kinematic sequence with a K-vest? If you put them under motion capture and you have them strike a heavy like a bag with a bat, or you have them like chop wood, have them throw a ball, you'll see the kinematic sequence tends to look really good, right? So when they're doing an athletic move, you're training the kinematic sequence. For some reason, so many kids try and make golf not athletic.
Exactly. I mean, I think, to your point, the throwing drills, the right way to run, all the cross training things that you do when you're young, that's really the best way to train it. I see too many golf instructors trying to create these perfect little golf swings when they're 6 to 10. We really don't like that. We like kids to be jumping off the ground.
When we see athletes from other sports that pick up golf later, they have great kinematic sequence because they're athletes.
That's right.
If you try and turn them into golfers, they tend to not have good kinematic sequence. Now, if you turn them to athletes first, then golfers, kinematic sequence kind of speaks for itself.
It's so important, and especially in today's world when there's video games and kids aren't really doing the primal movements things, those key skills are so important.
Okay, hope that answers. Remember, if we're not answering your question exactly the way you intended, just go ahead and shoot it in the Q&A part. Okay, let's see. How to help our juniors not be so tight in the hands and shoulders and the takeaway, top of the backswing and impact? Great question, Adam. So I think you're talking about like death grip or kind of all kids tightening up. Now this happens for a couple of reasons, and I would say the most important reason is strength. A lot of times kids are given their parents' clubs, right? And the clubs are probably double the weight that they really should have. So they're so heavy, so they have to do something to get the club in the air. So number one is if you haven't fit them properly, there's nothing you can do. Okay, the club's too heavy. So we always go the lightest club possible, right? Light and length. You want to go shorter, lighter, and more loft, like the 3 Ls. Lighter, length, and loft. That's number one. Number two is, now how do I make it, so let's say it's the right weight and they're still doing this. Why does a tour player look like the Big Easy? Or it looks so like they're not squeezing, but these kids look like this death grip. Well, we've done some testing on this at TPI, and we've just had a power level 2 class. We were talking about this. It's something that's really interesting is if you look at grip strength. Okay, so 2 things about grip strength. Number one, if I look at the average tour player's grip strength, use like a dynamometer, something where you squeeze, it's somewhere between 50 and 60 kilograms of mercury. Let's just say it's somewhere between 50 and 60. Okay. If I look at most amateurs and I say squeeze this, it's usually around 30.
That's right.
Okay, so now if I say to a tour player, I say, hey, how hard do you grip a club? If let's say they're normal 60, most of them will say it's about 50%. They'll feel like they're squeezing about 30. Now, if we go and measure them, they're usually a little heavier than they think. So let's say they're like 35 or 40. So if a tour player says, I'm not gripping that hard, it's like I'm grabbing a bird and it's 35 or 40, what most amateurs don't realize, especially kids, is that's 100% of their grip strength, right? They don't have 35 or 40, right? So if they do half, they'd be at 20, and no tour player squeezes at 20, right? And the biggest points where you need grip strength is, like you said, takeaway and transition. That's where your grip strength is going to go the most. Another key fact, and this comes from the world of tennis, is they've done research where they took a tennis racket. Imagine you take a tennis racket, you put it in a clamp. So the handle's clamped, the tennis racket's facing this way. They take a tennis ball cannon and they shoot a tennis ball at the middle of the racket and they measure the exit velocity of the ball goes. what they were doing is they would shoot a cannon right in the sweet spot, watch the exit ball velocity. Then they let go of the clamp. Then they just bounce the tennis racket. They shot the cannon, it hits the face of the tennis racket flies across the room, and they wanted to measure how much velocity, exit rebound velocity, was lost.
Yeah.
And this is a very famous study of biomechanics, and the answer is 0 was lost. It's equal. It's Newton's law, equal and opposite reaction. Yeah. So literally, you don't need any grip strength at contact if you hit the sweet spot, right? So this is why tour players who tend to get closer to the center of gravity sweet spot don't have to grip as hard. But most kids and amateurs aren't hitting the sweet spot. If you don't hit the sweet spot, obviously grip strength matters. So not only do kids have to have a little bit more grip strength, right, because they're not as accurate, right, but they're not as strong, so they feel like they've got this death grip to keep onto the club. So how do you fix this? Get them more grip strength. Yeah. Now, how do you get more grip strength? Carry heavy stuff, right? So that's why we like having the kids do the carries. We do the farmer's carries, the overhead carries with the kettlebell, trying to do bell up, trying to get them to build that grip strength. Really, in my mind, helps this. So I lighten the club, increase their grip strength, then I tell them to relax their grip, and now they actually can hold it like a pro player.
Yeah, I think the other thing too is, they grip it tightly because they're trying to hit something as hard as they can. I think tempo is a huge issue, and I think even devices like Tour Tempo, some kind of metronome where they're just working on their rhythm and letting their arms swing, constantly telling them, like we do the long drive guys, spaghetti arms, soft arms. And then you've done a couple of these great ways. Grip it as tight as you can, as loose as you can, and go in between. Just little drills like that are great for them to just start to do.
Okay, next one. When should juniors start playing with a pencil and scorecard in hand, ways to scale the golf? I think you're asking when should they start actually playing golf. I hope that's what you're asking. If not, just let me know, Mark. Listen, we're one of the only sports in the world where kids go to take lessons and they don't play the game. I mean, that's one of the biggest problems with our sport. They're like, this is boring. The fun part about golf is actually playing. Imagine if you've been in junior golf for 3 years and you never played. You don't know how good this game is, right? So we get kids on the golf course immediately. And make sure on the online class you go watch Dennis McDade's section of how we get kids on the golf course. I think that's critically important. Now, how do you scale the golf course? I mean, literally at 5 years old, we get them on the golf course. We have some cool ways to do this. They don't always hit a golf ball. Sometimes they throw a frisbee, they kick a ball, but they're on the golf course having fun.
There's a key. We have a little course down the road here called Goat Hill, and they just put in 3 junior holes, free for kids, $2 for adults. So it's just a box. It's a small piece of land. We need more of those kind of things.
That's great.
The other big one too is if you haven't looked at Operation 36, which is a really cool project, and that is a concept around junior golf, which basically they start at 50 or 75 yards from the green. The kids have to shoot par, so they play 9 holes from 75 yards to the green. Once they can shoot 36, they move back to 100 yards, and then 125. And you just put those tee markers out there. I think that's a great way to get them on the golf course and learning the game.
That's a great way of scaling the golf course. I like for scaling the golf course, and we put some in your online class too on the going to play golf section. We put an example of how to scale the golf course. But for scaling the golf course, to me, I think every hole a kid should be able to get on the green in regulation. Right. So if a kid's going to go play a par 5, I think they should have to hit 3 shots to get on the par 5, or if they kill their drive, maybe they get there in 2. If it's a par 4, they should be able to get on the green in 2. If it's a par 3, they should be on 1. So if you take a kid who can hit the ball 100 yards and you're going to go play a golf course and you decide to go play a par 3 and you put them on the tee box and it's 160 yards, that's not a par 3.
It's not fun.
Right. So literally, I like to scale the golf course based on their driver length. And that's kind of how we put in your golf in your level 2 manual. Is you take their driver distance, and based on their driver distance, that's how you set up the lengths of each of the holes, but make sure that they can go for a par 5 if they hit it hard. They can actually approach a par 4, and they'll have some short irons, some long irons, and that's how we like to scale, boys and girls. Okay, Steve Ball, what's happening, Steve? Would you try to fix a closed club face with a single-digit handicap junior? They typically also have a pronounced reverse C. Obviously, every case is individual, but if this is a problem, right now, it depends on the age. I mean, this is the best time in the world to learn technique, right?
It is. So, Steve, to your point, I mean, obviously, there's lots of different ways to grip the club. You know this. I think my biggest problem there is the reverse C, in that if they're got a lot of side bend to try and square the face, then that wouldn't be great. I mean, guys like Dustin Johnson have a lot of rotation and still have a shut face and are able to hold it off and square it. So that might be where the technique you have to look at that a little bit. in general, with a young child, most of them are developing stronger grips today. One, that can be because the clubs are too heavy, or two, because they're just not strong enough in the wrists. So, you put a weak grip with a heavy, or a neutral grip with a heavy club, most kids will feel a lot of strain in the wrist. That's why they go to a stronger grip. So again, I think it's kind of, you've got to gauge this, but you're an incredible teacher. So my advice would be, see if they can rotate and maybe leave them strong, and then check the club's weight.
I think, Steve, also you're pointing out that people with a closed club face, right, as they're coming into impact, because the club face is closed, they try and do something to open the club face. And one of the most common things is that reverse C. They're trying to open the club face as they go through. So that combination, like, I agree with you, shows up a lot together. Now, to me, fixing the reverse C is a result of them trying to increase the loft, right? So, and then you look at Dustin Johnson and John Rahm, I think a lot of the kids see this, they see this bow wrist. But remember, I always say, look, this is closing, that's opening, right? I always feel like you want them to close as they come into impact, right? So you want them to compress the off ball. But if it's already closed, it's kind of hard to close a closed door. So I always like to have a little open door with the kids so they can close it at first. Like even John Rahm, he's always trying to minimize how much he has this, right? He just kind of does it automatically, and that can get him in trouble sometimes. But I feel like that reverse C is their way of trying to get loft, and I would definitely attack that.
I think so, and you're seeing a lot of this. Greg mentioned the bowed wrist. John has a very neutral, the weak grip, and bows the wrist. Dustin has a strong grip and bows the wrist. There's lots of ways to bow the wrist at the top.
Okay, which one top? Okay, so how do you screen a junior differently from an adult? So Wallace, I think hopefully you've got to the screening section of our junior level 2 class, but basically, let me just start. Cradle to grave, we always do the level 1 screen. Okay, so that's a given. We do a level 1 screen on everybody, and there's no differences. Everything's the same. But for juniors, we need more. Right? So we need to go through and figure out developmentally where they're at, so that we know appropriately how to coach them. Right? And we do these screens where we take the 5 tests, your spiral and your leapfrog. We do all those screens that you see in the class to try and get an idea of developmentally where they are in golf. And then we have some physical screens, especially power screens. We do some of these things just to kind of get an idea of where they are, so that we don't miss any of those windows that we talked about, right? I think it's really, really important, especially the speed windows, the 2-speed windows, the strength and power. Don't miss those. There is no way to go back in time. We tell parents, you got one chance to do this right. If we miss this, we miss it. You can't go back. So for kids, physical screen is exactly the same. Level 1 screen, we add developmental testing. So we add the skills-based testing. A lot of people are like, in your skills-based testing, there's no physical. Well, actually there is. Remember, we have distances that you have to be able to hit or you can't move on. So power is intricately involved in our junior testing, right? And if power's down, then we're going to go look at the physical part. So that's literally how we screen our junior kids. Can you please talk about nutrition for juniors? Is there a difference in nutrition for girls and boys, specific age groups? Wow, Charles.
Charles should be asleep. He's in Perth, Australia.
Hopefully you're awake, Charles. But great question, and I can just tell you, this is doesn't matter if you're in Australia or you're here in the United States. This is probably the biggest health problem we have in the world right now. I think so many problems, from ADHD to just so many different things could be helped and assisted with proper nutrition. The problem is who's the dietitian for most kids? It's mom and dad, right? And how good is mom and dad's nutrition? And usually it's pretty bad, right? And sometimes it's like, hey, I'm just going to give them that sugary stuff just to shut them up, type of thing. So, and if you tell a kid, here's how you should eat, and they go home, they're not grocery shopping, they're going to eat what's in the refrigerator. So literally, it's basically, how can you educate the parents? So to me, educating the kids is important when they can actually shop for themselves and they have a choice. I just don't think kids under 10 have a choice, right? At least I haven't seen that. So they if food's put in front of them, they have a choice of what to grab. But if they have no choices at all bad, then they're really limited. So to me, I like to make nutrition really simple with the parents, and I think you should have parent workshops where you talk about nutrition. And I just go over basically the 3 types of foods, right? Remember, make this simple. I like the 3 types of food: protein, carbohydrate, and fat. Explain to them what those are, right? Show that, you don't want excessive in any of those. You don't want somebody to eat just protein. You don't want somebody to eat just fat. You want to eat just carbohydrate. A good balance in those is good. You can talk about what are good fats, what are good proteins, what are good carbohydrates. I usually take a plate. I mean, this is not, everybody's not the same, but if I took a plate, I made a plate, and I cut the plate in half, and then I cut half of the plate that I just cut half in another half. So I got 2 quarters and a half. I'd say most meals, if you want to kind of balance, if half of it was carbohydrate, 50% carbohydrate, 25% fat, 25% protein, that's pretty balanced. So it's like if you had a salad, right? You put a salad on there, that's all carbohydrate. All the vegetables, lettuce, the vegetables, all that stuff is carbohydrate. Now I want to put 25% protein. I can put some salmon on there, put some tuna on there, put some chicken on there. I can put some type of protein. And then, and if you don't like eating meat, you can put some legumes, some beans, put some kidney beans, some garbanzo beans on there. And then the other quarters, I need some fat. So I can put some olive oil or some vinaigrette on there, and maybe some nuts and seeds. Yeah, that's a perfectly balanced meal, right? So educating the kids on that and giving them examples of breakfast, lunch, and dinner, I think is important. And if you want to, one last thing that you go to is if you like watching, and if you're a Netflix subscriber, one of my favorite people, nutritionists, who just makes it simple, right? I don't, there's complicated. I like simple. 2 people, Michael Pollan, which basically has a program on Netflix called In Defense of Food. I think that's a great one. I wish every kid could watch that. And then one of our advisory board members, Dr. David Seaman, has a site called Deflame. So it's basically an anti-inflammatory diet, and he keeps it simple too.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I would say there is, even with my own kids, salads and seeds, and it's just not exciting to them. They're not going to eat it. So what I try and do is I make sure in the morning before they go is they have a shake.
Smoothies,
but it's a smoothie, and it has their greens in it, which
you can hide a lot of stuff.
Taste.
You can hide a lot of stuff in it.
So I put all the stuff that I think they need, enough protein in that one shake, and they love it. And they don't even know they're getting the greens and all this type of stuff, which is great.
I do think, remember, kids will eat anything. If you start them young enough, they'll actually like greens, right? You just, but it's when you start later it gets better. Okay. What's the best way for juniors to gain speed and distance if they miss their speed windows? Tom? There's no way to go back in time. I hate to say this. It's like literally, we talk about the 4 fuel types, right? We say there's rocket fuel, there's jet fuel, there's gasoline, and there's diesel. Now, here's the thing. If you hit all 4 windows, you hit speed window 1 when they're really young, speed window 2, strength and power, I believe they're rocket fuel for their entire life, right? That's Dustin Johnson, right? If you missed the first one, they didn't really do anything when they were really young, but by the time they got to their growth spurt, they were in some type of explosive speed program. They do some strength, they do some power. Well, then you got jet fuel. And you know what? There's some really fast jets, right? If you missed the 2 speed windows, the kids just didn't do anything when they were young, not athletic, but maybe in high school or college, they got into a strength conditioning program, did a little bit of power stuff later in life. You could be a gasoline engine. Now, there are some fast cars out there, but you're never going to beat a jet. You're never going to beat a rocket. And if you never did anything while you were young, some of you are going to hate me. What's young? Okay. And so basically, once you get to 22, you're old based on this, right? So if you did anything, you didn't do anything under the age of 21 or below, you're a diesel truck, right? And all I'm going to tell you this is I get this question all the time. I don't think anybody has experimented more with players than me. And I've tried to take diesel trucks and turn them into rockets. And there's one thing that happens, and I'm not proud of it. They just break it. They break down, right? I've had so many injuries. They're called torn hamstrings, torn Achilles. Hey, my knee popped out, tore my ACL. All of these diesel trucks, literally the engine's not powerful enough. And if we take them into the gym, we try and rebuild an engine, I just don't think the frame can handle it. So I don't even try anymore. So literally what I do is if I have a diesel truck, not a juniors, we're talking adults now. If I have a diesel truck, first of all, I maximize equipment, make sure they're fit properly for power, and then I maximize technique, try and give them some technique. Now, if I want to make this really clear, windows are not windows, they're gates. When a gate opens up, it's not like you only have it for 2 years and you stop. We're just saying at this age start, don't stop. So if you've missed it, it's okay to start trying it now under the age of 21, so if they're or under 22. So if you've got an 18-year-old that didn't do anything, yes, try and do speed windows. I think you can gain some speed. I just think when you've got a 28-year-old, 27-year-old, and you didn't do anything when you're young, you just gotta be really careful. That's my personal opinion. All right, let's see. When you have a competitive golfer, athlete, in rapid growth, are you training speed on the range as well as in the gym? Jennifer, great question. So remember, you're pointing out something that we say. Another little key is when they're growing fast, fast, right? That's why those speed windows are there. One of the key things that happens in a speed window is the bones grow faster than the muscles. And when the bones grow faster than the muscles get put on top, put on tension. Now think about like a bow and arrow. If the string is taut, you can actually shoot the arrow faster. So that's why this is a great opportunity for us to develop speed, but we also have to be careful we don't tear anything, right? So we slowly go after mobility, but we always encourage speed. And I would tell you, we go after speed anywhere we can. So of course we're doing it in the gym, and yes, we're doing it on the range. I mean, this is perfect time to have your long driving contest, put the speed monitors out. We do a 3-strike game. Super speed protocols with Clever's great. We do a 3-strike game where we put a launch monitor down and we say, okay, we're gonna do our speed program. So you're gonna hit a ball as hard as you can. You look at the speed monitor. Let's say it says we're looking at club head speed because that's what they can generate. So I don't care if they miss the ball. I want the club to go fast. So let's say the club head speed, just to make it easy, let's say it was 90 miles an hour. Okay. We have them hit another ball. Let's tee up another driver and swing. Let's say it was 92 miles an hour. We say tee it up again. It goes 94 miles an hour. Tee it up again. It goes 95 miles an hour. Tee it up again. Now it goes 94. That's your first strike. You get a strike. You put the driver down. You go hit 2 wedge shots. Let's go forget about it for a second. Let your nervous system calm down. Come back over, tee it up again. Your number was 95. You got to be 95. 96, you keep going. 97, you keep going. 95 again. That's strike 2. Go hit 2 wedges, come back over, tee it up again. If you keep going faster, you keep going. If the next swing is 92, guess what? Speed's over. That's 3 strikes. Literally, your nervous system is telling you, I've kind of burnt out my maximum speed. The problem is people that will go hit for 2 hours. And they just get slower and slower and slower and slower, and they think they're working on speed, but you're just training yourself how to get slower. Yeah,
we've had that problem with a few tour players. We won't mention names.
No, it's a big problem everywhere. So that's kind of like do it, both in the gym and on the range. Okay, let's see. Is it possible that elite development programs are damaging the golf? Well, good question, Patrick. So I think our EDP, our elite development program, is geared towards people who want to get into college, right? They want to kind of take their skills and get into college. I think EDP is a problem. Elite development is if you do it early, if you early specialize, right? If your EDP is all I'm going to do is play golf since I'm 6 years old and go through, I think it's one of the worst things you could ever do to a kid, right? If you do it in conjunction with our program, it's a multifaceted, multi-athletic development program. So I think the answer to your question is really simple. Well, what's that EDP program look like, and when are you doing it?
And what are your goals? Like, what are you trying to do?
Yeah, I mean, we're still developing the athlete. We're still cross-training. We're still, allowing anybody to enter this. We have, our pre-boot camps and all that kind of stuff that you can do it. And I think that's fine. I think we need more of that so kids that want to play know how to continue. All right, let's see. How would you teach the short game, finesse sequencing to junior golfers? Hey, Sean. We actually put on your curriculums, if you go in the online level 2 class, and under each one of the sections, I think if you go to the, I think it's in the, actually I've got a manual, in the play phase. Let's see, I've got a junior, let's see, just make sure. Yeah, in the play phase, if you go into the play phase and you download the curriculums, we have basically our themes, our teaching themes. And if I open this, let's see, I can even put it up. So we have one of the curriculums that has the finesse shot station, right? And in there, the themes are pretty clear. I'll show you the ones that we do. So the themes in year 1 of play. So this is in the skill phase, right? Remember, in the fundamental phase, they're just playing, right? There's no form-based coaching. It's all just object. Just can you hit it there? So in the play phase, we start with open chest, and this we work with James Seekman on this. We work with a lot of our advisory board members on this. But basically, the first thing we do is we try and get the laser beam pointing forward, right? So our first theme in finesse wedges, and again, it's baby steps, right? It's make them realize that when you're hitting finesse wedge shots, the best wedge players are not closed at setup, they're open. They're looking at their target, their chest, if there's a laser beam pointing out in front. We have them hit shots with that's their only thought, is one skill at a time, just kind of get the chest open. We go from open chest, we go to plane. We talk about up the plane, down the plane. A lot of people think they have to cut across the plane, come outside in. So we work on plane. We work on length of swing, so they get an idea of how far to control distance, how far to swing, like the clock system. Go length, and then we go over basic face to path. So we'll talk about rotation, using the bounce. So we go alignment, basically, path, then we go length of swing, and then we go basic path and face. And then later, maybe the following year in play 2, we'll go over different ball position variations. We'll go a little bit over release, a little more energy, like how much energy you put into it. And then we go through a lot of the games. I think we bring in like hazards, bunkers, uneven lies, all that in year 3. That's just how we do it. I don't think there's a right or wrong way. Just make sure you have your curriculum. But I download that curriculum phase. For all of these, by the way, if you're asking like, hey, how do you train power with the kid? Or how do you train putting? That's why we put those curriculums. Remember, we have curriculums that you can download in the online class that shows you what we do every week for 13 years. Right? Make sure you're looking at those so you can see the theme that we do. And the theme kind of spans across all the different stations. Right? So if we're working on grip, with our full swing, we're also working on grip with our putter. We're working on grip when we're hitting baseball bats. So we kind of keep that theme alive. Okay, so let's see. I'd like to learn more about the structure of a class, different ages within a class. So I think you're asking about our different golf schools. I think you're asking about the cyclone. If you're not, just tell me differently. The cyclone, smash, wave, about the structure of the class. The way we do a class is pretty simple. We put 6 stations. Now, some people are like, I don't have space for 6 stations. You don't have to do 6 stations. You can do 3 stations. You can do 2 stations. It doesn't matter. We like putting 6 stations down there. That gives us the ability to have some flexibility where, like, during the fundamental phase, we want more athletic skills, less golf skills. We might have 2 golf skills and 4 athletic skills. As they get older into our wave program, well, now we want more golf skills. We might have 4 golf skills and 2 athletic development skills. Kids rotate from station to station, depending on the age, right? Kids get bored when they're really young. We call it the 5-minute rule. So kids will rotate every 5 minutes, get something new. As they get older, well, that's not a huge problem. They want to spend a little more time. We can increase the time per station 15, 20 minutes. We like to put kids with at least a person to practice with. I don't think anybody likes to do individual training. I like to have a group. You can have 2 to 4 kids per station, right, as they rotate. We always just look, how many showed up today, right? 12 kids showed up today, there's 2 kids per station. And we put friends together if we can. If not, sometimes we put competitors together so they compete with each other. And they go from station to station to station, they help each other, they challenge each other, they compete with each other. And every station I like to have, here's the activity, and if you want a contest, here's a contest where you can compete with each other. I think competition is really, really important. Every 2 stations, mandatory water break, right? And basically the kids rotate, we blow the whistle when they rotate. If we blow the whistle twice, everybody comes into the middle. There's some type of announcement we want to do or some type of group activity or challenge. And that's literally the structure of the classes. I think that when we put the classes together, we put them together by levels. So in other words, when you do your screening, we're going to tell you if you're level 1, 2, 3, 4, a red hat, white hat, blue hat. We like to put potentially 3 levels in the same class. So if it was level 1, 2, and 3, that's your fundamentals, and fundamentals classes 4, 5, and 6, 7, 8. Now we can put up the 3 levels together, but I like to pair kids as close to 8 as possible. So if I have a group of kids, if I have 200 kids in my junior program, this is easy. If you have 10 kids in all different levels, this gets a lot harder. So you have to try and match them up based on their developmental level as much as possible. That's kind of how we do it. Okay, who utilizes your framework for training juniors that you would recommend? Several geographical. Oh, I think you're asking, Paul, where you can go and be a fly on the wall. I think that's probably what you're asking. Totally. I know, I'll speak for the obvious one is if you're close to us and you want to come out to San Diego, Milo Bryant, who's the head of all of our conditioning for our junior programs, has a facility down at the Del Mar driving range where Matt there kind of does the golf coaching. Milo does the conditioning. They're sold out. They've been sold out for a long time. Waiting list.
Just had a player win on the PGA Tour that came out of there. So.
That's it. And then, one of the kids that was Mike Kim that just basically started in the junior program, just won on the PGA Tour. So they got some incredible results. I know they allow people to come down there, and we send people down there all the time to fly on the wall. That's where our Find an Expert comes into play. If you go on our website, go to Find an Expert, look, you can see if they're junior certified, where they have those programs.
I think Mark Blackburn in Birmingham, Alabama does an amazing job. He's got a tremendous following there, a really good junior program, really good different things that they do, great staff. He's another one that I'm sure you could go down and see. We have a lot of them.
Yeah,
they're all over.
If you want to email one of us, so I can send you some emails with a couple of people. Yeah, where you're at, and then we can kind of do that. Okay. Is that our last one?
Last one?
Oh man.
And then we got to move over to
that one. Perfect. So do you have information on how to develop the mental skills for the junior as they're moving into teenage years? Man, talk about a loaded time bomb. So here's the thing. We've been talking about this for a long time. We have our curriculum, and in our curriculum, there's no mental. Well, Dr. Ernst Zwick, one of the people you see on the advisory board, has been working on this literally for 2 or 3 years, and he has a mental curriculum that we've put into our phases. We haven't launched that yet. I don't want to speak Dr. Zwick, but I think he'd be willing to share that with you. If you email him, you can find his information on our website, the advisory board, Dr. Ernst Zwick. I think it's growmetry.com. If you go to growmetry.com, you'll have an email that'll go directly to Dr. Zwick and say, hey, I'm interested in your mental skills layout. And if he says no, he doesn't have it yet, it's coming soon, I promise. But that is so needed. There are multiple different, I'd say there's 4 different basic mental skills, I would say. There's kids who are low motivation with high skill. Yeah. There's low motivation with low skill. Then there's high motivation with high skill, and high motivation with low skill. And I think all 4 of those are different animals. Yeah. And the way you attack them is very important. You just have to know who you're dealing with. And I think he does a great job of breaking that over to the developmental thing.
I do too. I think, Pierre and Lynn, I think, do a great job with some of their development.
Vision 54.
Vision 54. And they make it fun for the kids. And that's the kid, when they're going through this phase, what do they really need to work on? Some kids love to practice. Some kids hate to practice. Some kids are better getting on the golf course. What I've seen is I think kids are hitting too many balls on the driving range. I see lots of kids these days in junior programs that have great golf swings, and then when they go out and play, they struggle. I think we need to get them on the golf course more to help develop that mental approach to actually performing on the golf course.
Okay, looks like now we've got some questions pouring in from you guys. Okay, Craig, looks like you've got a couple of them here. So let me go to a couple of easy ones. Where do I buy the hats and wristbands at? So we used to offer the hats and wristbands here. The biggest problem we had is it had TPI logo here, and a lot of people were like, I want to put my logo over here. Yeah. So most of the people started ordering their own. We've actually been talking about doing this, and we're actually looking with vendors right now to create blanks. Yes. We don't have them yet. We are hoping to have those. And we had the bracelets too. I think those are going to be coming back to a theater near you soon. Yeah. Right now, the best thing you can do is go to one of your hat manufacturers to use now, ask them for the different colors. But unfortunately, right now, I don't have a good answer for you on that. But we are trying to solve that problem. Yeah, we're trying to solve that problem now. Let's see, Aussie Rules. Same Craig from you again. Aussie Rules, that's one of our tests. Aussie Rules, 3 points at 75 yards is what column says in the scoring table sheet, but when you look at the overall points to the right column next to it, it says 60 points. Well, let me grab my screening so I know exactly what you're talking about. So if I go to our screening and I go to Aussie Rules,
greatest game ever, by the way.
Yeah, you'd say that.
The real game.
3 points. Yeah, 3 points at 75 yards is what the column scoring sheet says, but when you look at the overall points to the right column next to the PAT, next to the PAT, it says 60 points. I don't see that. So I don't see where you see next to the PAT where it says 60. Okay, I'm sorry. Let's go back up there. Hold on, let me go to 3 points. And then yards. Go back up there, Brian. Sorry, Craig, I want to make sure we answer your question properly. Go back up. Oh, sorry. So literally, basically, what we're saying is every game that you do, or every screen that you do with the kids, right? So starting out, every kid is going to go through the spiral, the driver test, the baseball, Aussie Rules, and leapfrog, right? We take points. They get points on each one of those tests. The total points determines what level you are, right? So let's say I do really good on driver, but I do bad on Aussie Rules. The total cumulative score is what I'm looking for, because we like to take all 5 tests, give them the ability to score points on all of them, and then give them a level, not just one test at a time. Yeah. Because let's say you're really good at driving, but you're horrible at putting, it shouldn't hold you back. You'd still like playing golf, so we let you advance. So literally what the columns mean is for that one test for Aussie Rules, if you get 3 points at 75 yards, you get a total of 60 points for Aussie Rules, right? If you got 4 points at 110 yards, you'd get 90 points for Aussie Rules. So literally the test is scored with points, 1 or 3 points based on if you hit the middle goals or the outside goals. Have them go through the entire game. After you're done with the game, look at the points and then use that chart to figure out how many points they get for the overall test, right? So if one of your students got 3 points at 75 yards, they get 60 points for Aussie Rules. Then go add that to the other 4 tests and get your total cumulative points. And those total cumulative points is what gives you your levels, right? So if you have less than 45 points, you're level 1, right? If you have 45 to 75, you're level 2. And that's where those total levels scores come from. Hope that makes sense. And then one more from Craig there. If I have a junior that doesn't have the skill set for golf at age 12, both developmental, biological, and has the strength skills, what's the best way to integrate them into the golf skill phase program? For instance, I'm working with, so this is one of the most common things in the world. You got a kid who, let's say, has played hockey, has played as a javelin thrower, decides to play golf, but literally has no golf skills. What do I do? So the last thing in the world you'd ever want to do is put them in with younger kids in a cyclone, right? So if you've got a kid he's in the window of the wave, he needs to go in the wave, right? So people are like, how do they do the wave? We're doing advanced stuff. They go in the wave with a red hat. Red hat means, hey, here's a new kid. He's got all the physical skills. And what you'll see is, it's like if I went to martial arts with my daughter right now, and let's say my daughter was 7, and she says, hey, let's go do martial arts together. We're both going to get white belts. I'm going to be a white belt for hopefully maybe 6 weeks. She might be there for 4 or 5 months, right? It just takes the younger kids longer to advance. So the coaches just need to know when the kid's got a red hat, they're going to spend a little extra time showing them some of the basics, but just watch how fast they advance.
They copy really well at that age group too. So they'll start, if they're in with the other kids, they'll start to pick it up fast.
And then last, let's see, Craig just said screening the process in level 1. Should this be the same for juniors or should there be more? So we kind of talked about that already. So we screen kids the exact same. We add stuff for the kids, not abbreviated. Okay, Gino, it's like we got some questions from you. How do you handle timeouts? I give Dave timeouts all the time. So literally, usually from a kid beating on his brother or sister. Okay. So great question. We actually use a penalty box. So we have a penalty box that we have so we have our stations. We have a penalty box, and I love it. Like if a kid's misbehaving, I'm not going to let that kid take down all the other kids. We say you're going to the penalty box, and I like putting them in the penalty box, especially if they're going to a station they really like. And when you miss that station you really like, too bad. Hey, that's life. When you don't follow the rules, that's part of the problem. So remember, to start our junior program, we require 2 rules. Pay attention. You can pay attention, and you can hold your bladder. You can start, right? That's right. And we always say, listen, if you're talking while I'm talking, then either you're not listening, other kids can't hear me. So that's a problem. So we have certain rules. Hey, if you walk out into the driving range and people are hitting, that's a penalty box. You can get hurt, right? So we have safety rules and we have compliance rules. And the kids know this. We can have parents and kids sign this, that if you break the rules, you get to go in the penalty box. And if you break the rules 3 times, we can ask you to leave the program.
Yeah, I think sometimes these kids are looking for attention as well. So you should almost make them your helper, right? You're going to come work with me, and you're going to walk around and give them a task to do while they're with you, so that they start to realize that you're watching them, and that can help.
And kids like structure and like discipline. I know that sounds weird, but they tend to respect that.
If you don't have enough staff in your program, that can be a problem too.
Okay, and then Gina, with kids spending so much time on phones and tablets, they're already compromising their posture. Are extension drills enough to combat this, or should we spend more time on specific extension exercise? So let me say one thing about this. First of all, you could not be more right. There's a plague of technology destroying kids' physical abilities. But literally what happens is, I sit here, is this sitting and texting creates flexion from right here in the middle of their back. And a lot of times people are like, oh, we just got to give them extension exercise to do this. Well, a lot of times, because they're flexing just from their mid back, they lose flexion from their hips and from their upper back. So I always start with, I got to give them another place to flex from too. So we do a lot of hip hinging stuff, toe touching, all the toe touch progressions, make sure their lumbar spine and their hips can flex. Then we go into more postural stuff. I always like with some of our kids, those postural shirts, they have these shirts you can put on that can pull your shoulders back.
Teleskin.
Yeah, some of the teleskin stuff. I actually have some of the kids turn those backwards. So they turn it around. So the shirt pushes them this way and they have to hold it back, right? And we even practice, we're like, okay, who can keep their shoulders back and text for 2 minutes?
Yeah.
You know, it's a tiring drill, right? So you can show them things like trying to encourage those postures. But yes, so don't just do extension exercises, also add the flexion. I feel like the flexion is the key. If I give them the ability to flex from the hips and not from the spine, then things get better. Yeah. Okay, so let's see. That's like, except from Tom. Okay, being a golf instructor originally and now a junior level 2 certified, would golf level 2 help more with juniors, or is golf level 2 more for the player? What is a good way to develop speed in the early teenagers? Let's do that first one. Tell them about golf level 2 real quick.
Yeah, so golf level 2, we really go into how to fix things, right? So in level 1, you learn the Big 12. Level 2, Greg, we really go into a little bit more of advancement on the Big 12. You know, there's multiple forms of early extension, reasons why people come over the top. But the big key is teaching them the drills and teaching them the teach around. So making sure you understand that you have a skill set of drills to go after them, to see if you can make a change, and then understanding that sometimes you can't and you have to teach around it. We also get into the science of TrackMan, the ball, why does it go so far, so on and so forth, and just understanding that, which a lot more people today have a better understanding of radar and what happens in order to get distance and speed and power. But the big thing in 2 is understanding how to fix the problem when you have it, and then putting in place the practice programs to do it. Because that's what I find is that it's not good enough just to give somebody a drill. You have to integrate it into an actual plan of, you're going to do 3 of these, then you're going to try it, and you're going to come back, and so on and so forth. And you really need to structure the motor learning side of it.
We also look at vision too, by the way. So if on your kids, you're like, I know my kid has this mistake, they're early extending, they're over the top, but you want more drills on that. That's golf too. We go through a lot of those. Or my kid has he's got scoliosis, spine doesn't rotate. How do I teach around that limitation? That's golf too. I've got launch monitors. I'm looking at the data. I'm not sure how to. That's golf too. There's vision problems. That's golf too. So more of the coaching specific for their teaching around, teaching with those limitations. Okay, so then we got. There's one thing. Somebody asked another question about mental. I think we already covered this, but I do want to say one thing is. I think it's important, and Ernst talks about this in the level 2 class, is that when kids get into their growth spurt, okay, their body starts to go haywire, right? Yes. And they could be really good at that point, and then all of a sudden they get worse. Yeah. There's lots of cases in history where golfers who are really good, and they're 12, 13, 14, all of a sudden fall apart in the growth spurt. I think it's really important mentally to sit down with the kid and the parents and say, listen, right now your body's about to go this whirlwind, right? And sometimes when your right arm's longer than your left arm, and your left leg's longer than your right leg, your technique is a little wonky. So we're trying to maintain your technique. So if they're a very competitive player and they're competing in tournaments all over, I like to pull them back to regional play, right? So like if they're playing national tournaments or even international tournaments, I don't want them to mentally think that they've lost it when it's just a physical problem. So almost for a year to 18 months, I pull them back regional where they can still be very competitive. They don't get frustrated. And then once this growth spurt's over, we take them back. That's something that has helped us a lot. What advice, Charles, can you give for building love for the game? How can I get parents to? I told you my number one thing is, you know what? I think if they play this game, they're going to love it. The problem is kids aren't allowed to play the game. They feel like they're not allowed on the golf course, like nobody wants them at the country club, and we're expecting them to love this game. I mean, I don't like that. I love playing golf, right?
Age appropriate distance as well. And I think it's education. You got to educate kids on, look at all the different types of people. You can play this game from 2 to 92 or longer. And, you know, look at all the different places you can go, all the amazing golf courses. And look at the different tours. I mean, every type of human body is on the tour. We've got these guys. I think everybody thinks you've got to be Dustin Johnson or 6'4" and an incredible athlete. And then Francesco Molinari goes and wins at 5'9", you know, and the British Open this past weekend. And you got to educate them on all the different types of people that play this game at all different kinds of levels, and also a little bit on the history of the game. I think we lose that. I think kids don't know who Ben Hogan is.
Got to make it fun. Got to make it. They have to have fun on the golf course. If they're not having fun, it's too hard. Who likes that? Nobody likes that, right? And then I think some people have to wake up in the golf industry. I hate to say this, but kids today are not what we were like when we were kids. No, and if you're like, you know, the whole traditional or modern game, you know, anything that tries to stay old and old traditional. I think I might just have an earthquake here. But, I think the old traditional golf rules, you know, got to be quiet. You can't use your cell phone. You can't have music in the golf cart. my personal opinion, that's making it very difficult for us to compete with soccer and to compete with dance and gymnastics and baseball, where it's all about fun and excitement and things for kids. If you want kids in the game, you need to make the game fun for kids.
You do, and you know, like I mentioned, this little course around the corner that put in 3 holes. You could probably find a very small area at any golf club where you could do this. But even some of the things other clubs are doing now, I know a club that's put in a baseball diamond, and the family come out on the weekend and everybody hits and they have fun and popcorn and so on. And they integrate other sports that kids love into the golf facility. So
you're
kids
competing with that.
Yeah, so kids are now going, let's go to the golf club to play baseball. And now it becomes a bigger factor. So.
Okay, so a couple last things, since we only have a couple more minutes here. We probably have time for one more. If somebody, we did get one more. Okay, and then I'll give you the. Let's see, from Tom. If a child is playing bad on the course, is it a good idea to switch to a scramble or alternate shot and take the pressure off the game? Remember what we just said. Man, you got to make this fun, right? Like I'll tell you a story with my daughter. So we used to go out when she was young with one of her friends. And you know, it's tough playing golf when you're young. So we would do stuff. At any point in time they wanted to throw a frisbee instead of hit the ball, they could do that. After a while, they realized when they hit the ball, it goes farther, and they want to hit the ball more. But we used to have there was a ravine on our, there was the course we played, a short course. There was a ravine on the 5th hole, and there was a ravine like on the 11th hole. And I always used to say to them, I go, hey, if you're not having fun, at any point you let me know. I go, but if we get to the ravine, if you can drive it over the ravine, which was a big hit for them. If you have a ravine, if you guys want, we'll just stop and go get ice cream, right? And they couldn't wait to go play because they wanted to see if they can hit over the ravine. And I'll never forget when they got to the point where they actually, my daughter's friend hit it over the ravine. I was like, you hit it, we're all giving each other 5. And I'm like, you guys want to go get ice cream? They're like, can we finish first? I'm like, okay, this is perfect. Now they actually are enjoying this. So those are some of the ideas. Okay, real quick, World Golf Fitness Summit. For you guys, just to make sure everybody knows about it, October 12th through the 14th in Orlando. We've got a heck of a lineup there. It's always 3 best.
53 speakers.
It's awesome. So the theme is yards and years. The reason I want to bring this up is obviously we're going to talk about how to hit the ball farther with yards, but we're talking about years too. So how to prolong this. A lot of that has to do with what they do when they're young, right? And then if you enjoyed this, we're always looking for feedback. By the way, we just started implementing these Q&As. I hope you found this helpful. The next junior Q&A, we just launched it, is September 24th at 11 a.m. We're going to kind of do these once a quarter, unless you guys say you want more. If you want more, it's very easy for us to do this.
The other one too is the junior 3 dates. We have a junior 3 on.
It's December 7th through the 9th here at TPI. Any fitness ones, I don't know if we posted it yet, but I think the fitness level 3 is going to be the 3 days before the World Golf Fitness Summit in Orlando. But we have the medical level 3, the golf level 3, and the junior level 3 dates up and live. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Hopefully if you got more questions, just shoot it to us. We'll see you September 24th. Thanks for tuning in on the world, and hope to see you at the level 3.
Thanks guys.
See you guys.